What if I told you that the single most revolutionary automobile ever created, the machine that literally put the world on wheels, the invention that defined American ingenuity and became the symbol of an entire era of progress, had to be systematically, deliberately, and mercilessly executed by its own creators? That the very masterpiece that built a global empire, that made the Ford name synonymous with innovation itself, was deemed so dangerous to its own company's survival that it had to be pushed into an early grave? And that the chief architect of this shocking corporate assassination was none other than the legendary man who had built the entire empire with his own two hands? This isn't just some simple story about a new model replacing an old one. This is a story of industrial espionage-level secrecy. This is a story of a high-stakes corporate coup happening right under the nose of the public. A story of a father's almost divine, unshakable vision crashing violently into a son's desperate, ambitious struggle to save their crumbling dynasty from total collapse. This is the secret, buried, untold story of the car that was given one single, impossible mission to kill the immortal, untouchable legend that was the Ford Model T, to murder a king. I'm talking about a cloak and dagger project so deeply secret, it was developed in locked, windowless rooms while the outside world speculated wildly that Ford was finished forever. A financial gamble so audacious, so breathtakingly risky, it literally bet the entire company, every single asset, on one single roll of the dice. This is the story of what happened in the shadows, the story of Ford's first true successor. A story intentionally buried under layers of corporate history and legend, now finally, fully revealed. So buckle up, tighten your grip on the wheel, because we're about to dive deep into a tale of family rebellion, of corporate betrayal, of psychological warfare, and one of the most unbelievable, make-or-break gambles in the entire history of business. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will fundamentally change everything you thought you knew about Henry Ford, about the American automobile, and about the brutal cost of progress. To truly, deeply understand the sheer, monumental scale of this story, we have to travel back. We need to fully immerse ourselves in the era. Let's set the scene precisely, down to the smallest detail. The year is 1927. The Ford Model T isn't just a car. It's a global cultural phenomenon, a force of nature. It's the machine that built the modern American middle class from the ground up, the invention that conquered vast distances and shrank an entire continent, the product that introduced the very concept of mass production to the world. It's a symbol of unstoppable, relentless progress. But behind the glorious, polished public image, a terrifying, cold reality is setting in within the hallowed, secretive halls of the Ford Motor Company headquarters in Dearborn. A panic is quietly spreading. The undeniable truth is, the iconic, beloved Model T has become a relic. A dinosaur, a beautiful, revolutionary artifact from a bygone age. It's been an astonishing 19 long, uninterrupted years on the market without a single major redesign, 19 years. In the incredibly fast-moving, cutthroat world of technology and consumer taste, that's not just a long time, that's an entire eternity. And while the legendary Henry Ford has been resting stubbornly on his laurels, treating his creation as his untouchable, sacred masterpiece, a hungry, aggressive pack of competitors has been silently and efficiently eating his lunch, bite by terrifying bite. Companies like General Motors, led by the strategic, visionary genius Alfred P. Sloan, aren't playing by Henry's old-fashioned rules anymore. They've figured something out, something crucial. They've realized that people don't just want basic, utilitarian transportation anymore. They want more, they crave style, they demand comfort, they desire status and individuality. Chevrolet is now selling cars that are, gasp, actually desirable. They come equipped with modern, convenient electric starters, completely eliminating the dangerous, cumbersome, and often brutal hand crank that had broken arms and spirits for 2 full decades. They feature modern, smooth-shifting, user-friendly transmissions. They offer comfortable, plush interiors. And most damningly, most symbolically of all, they offer colors. A whole spectrum of vibrant, beautiful blues, deep greens, and radiant reds that scream individuality, modern luxury, and personal expression. And people are flocking to them in droves. Ford's market share isn't just dipping. It's an absolute freefall, plummeting in a way that sends violent shockwaves through the entire industry and the national economy. The truly unthinkable is happening in real time. Ford, the undisputed, unchallenged king of the entire automotive world, is becoming obsolete, irrelevant. The king is not just losing his crown. His entire kingdom is at risk of a full-scale revolt and collapse. Panicked, desperate dealership owners, the true lifeblood of the company, are writing increasingly frantic letters and making terrified phone calls to Dearborn. They're begging, pleading, screaming for Henry Ford to listen, to give them anything new and competitive to show in their empty, languishing showrooms. But the old man, Henry Ford, is stubborn to the point of catastrophic self-destruction. He loves his Model T like a child, with a fierce, possessive, almost irrational passion. He sees its stark simplicity as its greatest virtue, its rigid uniformity as its ultimate strength. His infamous, legendary quote wasn't just a witty remark. It was a rigid manifesto that was now threatening to bankrupt them all. Any customer can have a car painted any color that he wants so long as it is black. That single, stubborn sentence now encapsulates the entire, devastating problem facing the company. His monumental, towering ego, the very thing that had built the global empire, was now the immense anchor threatening to drag the entire enterprise to the bottom of the sea. And then, the final hammer fell. The truly unthinkable happened. Ford made a shocking announcement that stunned the world into silence. They were completely shutting down the massive, legendary, seemingly unstoppable River Rouge plant. The industrial heart of America simply stopped beating. The silence was deafening, eerie. Tens of thousands of workers were immediately, indefinitely laid off without a clear future. The world held its breath, reading daily newspaper headlines that asked the terrifying, looming question, is Ford finished? What on earth was happening behind those tightly closed, fortress-like doors? The fate of an industry hung in the balance. Behind those heavily fortified, silent walls, a desperate, silent rebellion was raging, a civil war. And it was led by the most unlikely revolutionary imaginable, Henry Ford's own quiet, soft-spoken, art-loving, aesthetically minded son, Edsel Ford. This was a Shakespearean-level drama of epic proportions playing out on a gargantuan industrial stage. The brilliant, stubborn father versus the visionary, anxious son, the glorious, fading past versus the uncertain, risky future. Henry Ford, the man from the farm, the mechanical purist, saw the automobile in one way only, as a pure, simple, functional machine, a utilitarian tool for the masses, no more, no less. Its beauty was found solely in its function, its reliability, and its revolutionary low cost. But Edsel Ford saw the world through a completely different, modern lens. He saw the automobile as moving sculpture, as a canvas for expression. He intuitively understood human desire, style, emotion, and aspiration in a way his father could never comprehend. He knew in his bones that the next Ford couldn't just work well, it had to look good, it had to feel right. It had to make your heart beat faster when you saw it sitting in your driveway. It had to be a statement about who you were, about who you wanted to be. It needed to be a companion, not just a conveyance. This fundamental, philosophical clash was the core of a massive, unprecedented, terrifying billion-dollar gamble. This wasn't a simple redesign or a facelift. This was a full, scorched earth policy. They weren't just designing a new car, they were systematically, painstakingly dismantling the entire, globe-spanning Model T production empire, the most efficient, celebrated manufacturing system the world had ever known, to build a whole new one completely from the ground up. It was an act of industrial suicide performed with the desperate, wild hope of a miraculous resurrection. Every single component, every bolt, every process had to be rethought, re-engineered, and reinvented from a blank sheet of paper. They needed a completely new engine block, more powerful, smoother, and quieter. a modern, intuitive transmission that didn't require a special skill to operate. They needed a reliable water pump, an accurate, easy-to-read fuel gauge, real, effective bumpers that were standard equipment, not an expensive luxury. These were all things Henry had dismissed for years as frivolous, expensive, unnecessary weaknesses that added cost and complexity. The engineering challenges were monstrous, a mountain of problems to solve. The financial risk was astronomical, almost incomprehensible. The pressure on the small, secret team was absolutely suffocating, a constant, heavy weight. The entire future of the Ford Motor Company, the jobs and livelihoods of tens of thousands of people, and the very legacy of the Ford family name were all riding on this one, secret, moonshot project. The immense weight on young Edsel's shoulders was almost unbearable. One single miscalculation, one failed part, one misjudgment of the public's taste, and it was all over. Everything would be lost. This was the biggest, riskiest, most audacious gamble in the entire history of the automotive industry. They weren't just betting on a new product. They were betting the entire company on a feeling, on a style, on a dream of what the future should be. When this new car finally christened the model, in a deliberate, poignant nod to the company's very humble beginning, was at last ready for its grand unveiling to a skeptical world, the public reaction wasn't just positive. It was a phenomenon of hysterical, unprecedented proportions. The facts and stories surrounding its debut are so wild, so dramatic, you'd think they were ripped from the script of a Hollywood movie. Fact 1. The hype machine, even by the standards of 1927, was unlike anything the world had ever seen before for a consumer product. On December 2, 1927, the day the Model A was officially shown to the world, over 10 million people, let me repeat that number so it sinks in, 10 million people, which was roughly 1/10 of the entire population of the United States at the time, spontaneously descended upon for dealerships in a nationwide frenzy. They weren't even there necessarily to buy, most were just there to see, to witness this myth made real, to gaze upon the successor to the legend. The crowds were so immense, so chaotic, and so densely packed that they caused total traffic gridlock in major cities like New York, Chicago, and Detroit, completely paralyzing streets with throngs of people who didn't even own a car yet. It was a spectacle of pure, unadulterated public fascination and pent-up demand, a tidal wave of curiosity that showed the world the enduring power of the Ford name. Fact 2. To prove to a skeptical public that the new Model A wasn't just a pretty face, that it had genuinely inherited the Model T's legendary go anywhere toughness, Ford's ingenious marketing department embarked on a nationwide campaign of insane, death-defying publicity stunts designed for the newspaper age. The most famous and daring of these saw an incredibly brave driver piloting a completely stock Model up the 89 steep, treacherous, stone steps of the Tennessee State Capitol building in Nashville. The car climbed slowly, agonizingly, and inexorably grinding its way to the very doors of the Capitol itself, a stunning visceral display of raw torque and durability that was photographed from every angle and splashed across front pages of newspapers nationwide. They performed other incredible stunts, like having a Model A tow a massive multi-ton freight train along a track to demonstrate its unbelievable pulling power, all to hammer home the simple, powerful message: this new car is both beautiful and brutally capable. It is the complete package. And my favorite fact, the ultimate symbol of the change, Henry Ford's sacred, infamous, ironclad rule of any color so long as it's black was not just quietly retired. It was publicly, triumphantly executed. The Model A didn't timidly launch with one or two safe new colors. It launched with a sophisticated palette of four stunning, deep, and elegant colors: rock moss green, dawn gray, and a lucite blue, and gunmetal blue. This was far more significant than a simple new paint option. It was a declaration of a new philosophy, a new era. It was the company itself admitting that individuality mattered, that personal style was a critical feature, and that the world had finally, irrevocably moved on from monochrome utility. It was a revolution delivered in a paint can, a silent rebellion that every customer could see and touch. So what did this revolution, this brutal and costly transition, ultimately create? What was the true, long-term outcome of this multi-million-dollar, company-breaking gamble? It created something far greater, far more enduring than just a successful new car model. It forged an entirely new, permanent philosophy for the Ford Motor Company, a DNA strand that was encoded into its very being, and continues to powerfully define its every action to this very day. The Model A was the crucial, indispensable bridge between two eras. It was the vehicle that proved once and for all that a car could successfully brilliantly be two seemingly opposite things at once: a rugged, dependable, practical, everyday machine for the masses and a beautiful, desirable object of art and personal expression. It could be engineered for reliability and affordability, but designed for emotion and aspiration. It could be for everyone, but it could also feel like it was personally made just for you. It possessed a personality, a charm, a soul that the purely utilitarian Model T could never have dreamed of. It wasn't just transportation, it was a partner in adventure. That spirit, that powerful core idea, didn't die with the end of Model A production. It lived on. It became the foundational bedrock, the spiritual blueprint, for every single iconic Ford that followed throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. You can see its direct, undeniable DNA in the sleek, rebellious, and utterly accessible style of the first Mustang in 1964, a car that itself created a whole new class of automobile and captured the world's imagination in a way few cars ever have. You can feel its undeniable toughness and unwavering capability in the very frame of every F-Series truck that has gone on to become America's undisputed best-selling vehicle for over 4 consecutive decades. You can witness its relentless, forward-thinking, innovative spirit in the cutting-edge, race-bred technology of the modern Ford GT supercar, a car that proudly stares down Ferrari and Porsche, the world's most prestigious stages, and proves American engineering is second to none. The Model A was so much more than a mere successor, it was a savior. It was the car that had to commit the unthinkable, that had to kill a king, in order to save the entire kingdom from certain collapse and oblivion. It was the painful, difficult, but necessary transition from black and white thinking into a brilliant, vibrant, exciting world of color and possibility. It forever changed the course of the Ford Motor Company, setting it on a path toward design excellence and innovation, and in doing so, it forever changed the very relationship we have with the automobiles we drive. It made the car not just a tool, but an extension of ourselves, a part of our identity, our freedom, and our dreams. The gamble was insane, the risk was unimaginable. But the legacy is eternal.